The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get some groundwork done here. The mayor is going to give a greeting. We're going to see the video. Bishop Thomas will be here and give us a greeting then as well. I'm going to start though first of all and ask our interpreter to make her announcement. Ms. Holm.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Judy, soy intérprete de español. Si necesitan el equipo aquí me pueden encontrar. Gracias.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Pleased to be here tonight in this beautiful house. And we have several city employees who are here. I'd ask our city employees if they'd raise their hands. Want to thank them for being here. They're here to listen. If there are individual questions or comments, that's fine to give them a hand. Thank you. They are all here without being paid extra to do that, to hear, to listen, and to be available for questions or comments afterwards. I want to thank Mayor Stan for hosting the citywide hearing here, and he's going to give some thanks to both the church and to our other hosts of the evening. So with that, I'll introduce our mayor, Greg Stanton.
All right. All right, thanks, City Manager Ed Zerga, very much. Thank everyone for being here on this very important process for the City of Phoenix, one of our major budget hearings. And, you know, the college basketball championship is on tonight. Down the street, we got a full house for the Diamondback season opener. But you know what? This is much more important, what we're going to talk about here tonight, the future of the city and how we spend your money, your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. This particular budget hearing came about because I met with Charlene Tarver and the leadership of the 100 Black Women of Arizona, who are taking the city by storm in a short period of time, just as they promised they would. And they said that they wanted to do really a deep dive on city issues, a deep dive on policy issues, a deep dive on the city's budget. So I said, all right, you want to do it? Let's do it. Let's organize a budget hearing, a citywide budget hearing, and that's exactly what they did to help get the word out. So hopefully we'll have a real good attendance. Obviously we have a good attendance here tonight so far, and I know more are coming. In addition, we partnered with my advisory committee, my African American Advisory Committee. I see Gail Knight, one of the chairs, is here. Gail, thank you for your service as the leader of my advisory committee and helping to put this on. Ben Taylor is also co-chair. Ben, good to see you. I know the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals, talk about an organization that's taken the city by storm. The young professionals are doing an awesome job, and I know that they got the word out to get as many young professionals to participate in the important city budget process as well. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Bishop Thomas and the folks here at Pilgrim's Rest Baptist Church. Is there any great community event that they don't organize or help put together right here at this church? An amazing, amazing community resources, saving souls on Sunday and saving the rest of us, the community, helping the rest of us out the rest of the week. And I think Bishop Thomas is going to be here shortly after the video. Look, the city of Phoenix does a hyper-public budget process. And I don't mean to insinuate that other levels of government don't do that, but they don't do that at the state legislature. At the state legislature, they announce the budget at 2 p.m. and they vote on it at 3 p.m. with little to no public input. Conversely, the city of Phoenix puts out our proposed city manager budget. It's in the newspaper, it's out in the community, and then we hit the road. We do about 20 budget hearings all across the city. We listen to what the people have to say about what the city manager has proposed regarding the budget levels for each of our department. Included in that is recommendations as it relates to revenue, including property taxes. I'm sure that's going to be an issue that'll be the subject matter today. In addition, an issue of compensation for our great city employees is an issue that I'm sure will be discussed hotly today. We're going to have these hearings all across the city, and every single year changes are made, significant changes are made to our city budget based upon the input that we hear from the community. So these budget hearings matter, and they matter a lot. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Nowakowski Has been kind enough to come to this hearing. He may want to say a few opening comments. This is probably his third or fourth budget hearing already. This is my second one, I guess, because I had my neighborhood group do it as well. But he's a veteran of even more of these budget hearings. Have him say a few words. Then we'll watch the video, and then we'll take any testimony. Now, the one person, in addition, before Michael Nowakowski comes up, that is a huge debt of gratitude. He just signed up for this job permanently. Because it's budget time at the city, it means he's watching every dollar that goes into every department, which means the department leaders hate to have a meeting with him right now because he's going to take their money to make sure we save as much money as possible. But that's our budget director, Jeff Barton. If you could stand up and just wave your hand. Thank you for your leadership during these very, very important times. All right, with that, I hand over to Councilor Nowakowski to say a few words. We'll roll the video, and then we'll begin to take public testimony. Where are the cards to fill out? If folks have already started to fill out the cards, but in the back, if you want to give testimony in the budget, fill out a card, and we'll take those cards in the order that we receive them. Councilman Nowakowski.
All righty, let's give a round of applause to our mayor. As the mayor said, we're here to listen. Listen where you want to spend your tax dollars. There's a lot of wants out there, but what I want to hear today is what's the needs? What are the needs of the community? And also, we need to know what your wants are, but if you want something, then how are we going to actually pay for it? And then we have some proposals on the table, and I'd like to hear from you all, is about our taxes, right? We're talking about property tax. So if we're going to keep all of our youth programs, our senior programs, get some more police officers and all that, are we willing to give a little too? And that's what I want to hear from you all is, are you willing to do a property tax? Are you willing to do maybe even a food tax? What are we willing to give up ourselves to keep the quality of life that we have here in the city of Phoenix? And that's one of the things I like to hear. The other thing I like to hear also is that I know that when we go out through the communities, we're always being asked for more police officers. And also I want to find out if that's really important to have more police officers and the whole thing with the body cameras also. I know that the mayor is being a champion on the body cameras, making sure that each and every police officer has a body camera on them. So all those questions are important for us as public leaders to hear what the importance is for y'all. So thank you for being here, and we're here to listen. And God bless.
Thank you, Councilman. Before we get to the video, just a couple other things. We'd like to recognize two former elected officials with us. Former Councilman Craig Tripkin is here. And from District 8, former Councilman and former Vice Mayor Calvin Good. Thank you for joining us. So hopefully you had an opportunity to pick up one of these budget, we call them tabloids. This is an explanation, as briefly as we can, of the budget. If you want to get more detail, you can go online, and the whole 100+ pages is online at phoenix.gov/budget. So the highest level will be the video, then more detail in this budget tabloid, and then if you're really motivated, phoenix.gov/budget for more detail to make that available. This is a very complex budget. As the mayor noted, we have several things happening right now. We have employee negotiations. How much are we going to pay our employees? We have the budget itself, which is complicated for a $3 billion corporation like the city. And we also have some things going on with our debt service payments, which we pay through our property tax. The video is going to explain those things, and there are some pages in this handout that track with the video a little bit too. So we invite you to sit back and take about 15 minutes here with this video, and then as the mayor said, we'll go to your comments and your questions. So with that, we will roll the tape.
Hello everyone, and welcome to your first look at the City of Phoenix 2016-17 City Manager's Trial Budget.
Input from our residents is very important, as your ideas can help shape what will end up being the final budget for the next fiscal year.
The final budget is important because it provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money and how services that you depend on could be impacted.
I think the city manager's trial budget provides a great pathway for us to continue providing the outstanding services that Phoenix residents expect and it gives employees the opportunity to continue to provide that great service every day.
Why is a balanced budget important? It's required by state law and city charter. In this trial budget, there is a $60 million surplus that can be used to improve essential services that will benefit the community. Examples include public safety needs, employee compensation, and restoration of some programs and services. So how does the funding work? Funding for the city budget comes from three sources: the general fund, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds. Examples of general fund city departments include police, fire, the library, parks and recreation, and streets. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds account for designated sources of money for a specific purpose, like sales tax dollars for the hiring of police officers and firefighters, and funds for public transit.
So how did we get here? Under the leadership of the mayor and city council, we are glad to say the budget is balanced.
The mayor and city council have really set the tone and direction for our city staff and employees to be focused on innovation and efficiency.
Here's just some of the ways that happened. First, eliminating 119 vacant positions and other administrative savings actions that will result in an overall savings of just over $11 million. Second, there is a one-time carryover of $25 million from last year's surplus. Also, the city is saving by making needed adjustments to the workers' compensation fund and has sold extra police helicopters that were too expensive to maintain. Did you know that Phoenix has reduced administrative expenses and has the smallest number of employees per capita in over 40 years? And while still providing great services, the city has reduced authorized staffing levels by more than 2,700 positions. That is 16% since 2007. Also, city staff is constantly finding innovative ways to save money. Did you know that since 2010, we have saved $106 million in taxpayer funding? Some examples: the municipal court. It saved almost $600,000 by eliminating a criminal courtroom and a civil courtroom due to lower court volume. Plus, a new process with copy services. By reducing the number of printers and copiers citywide and securing more competitive rates with copy contracts, the city should save hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Now to rising pension costs, which continue to be an important issue. Thanks to the leadership of the mayor and city council and actions taken by voters, the savings from reform efforts will reach $1.1 billion over a 23-year period. And what a difference a year makes. Last year's 5-year forecast projected a deficit of up to $58 million. But with guidance from the mayor and council and the efficient work of city staff, that deficit was eliminated without reducing services to the community.
Mayor and council also expect us to provide trade service, and that's what the city employees work to do every day.
One of the biggest challenges the city faces has to do with how the city will continue to make its debt payments for voter-approved capital projects.
We're in a place where we need to make tough choices. Like any of us during the recession, where you may have lost a job or your wife may have lost their job and your income changed and your bill stayed the same. So the city of Phoenix is at that point now.
Several options will be discussed, including increasing Phoenix's combined property tax rate. Phoenix has had the same rate for 20 years. That means since 1995, residents have paid $1.82 per $100 of assessed value for property tax. The rate has gone unchanged while the city's population grew and important services developed, like new fire stations, parks, and libraries. The city has been using a reserved fund to help pay off that debt. This has relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession.
What other cities in the valley, after the recession, they started to, when their assessed valuation changed, the values of their properties changed, they started to float their rate up and down so that they levied the same amount of money, brought in the same amount of income. What the city of Phoenix did, we thought that we would give our taxpayers relief. So we kept the rate at $1.82.
In the meantime, the city had debt to pay, so a reserve fund was used. This relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession. But now that well of backup money is finally running dry, and the city needs to raise an additional $37 million to pay the debt service. Otherwise, Phoenix's strong credit rating could take a hit.
We are taking in less money, and now we still have the same payments. Our payment on our mortgage is essentially our debt service. That's what we have to continue making. At the same time, we have other sources or other services that we provide. Those costs have also increased, and our ability to make those payments has gotten tougher and tougher.
The budget lays out 5 ways to solve this. A detailed explanation of these options are in the trial budget summary booklet, handed out at all public meetings and online at phoenix.gov/budget. Option number 1, increase the combined property tax rate by 35 cents to $2.17. This would equal an additional $4.25 per month on an average single-family home, about 14 cents a day. Even at this rate, the average single-family homeowner will still be paying less than they did back in 2009.
We could continue to provide services, infrastructure, pay our debt at the lowest, cheapest possible cost, and maintain a very strong bond rating, and to provide our citizens with good services for many years to come.
Option number 2, generate $37 million in other ways by increasing a local sales tax, a food tax, or perhaps an addition to your city services bill. Option number 3, use all of the $60 million surplus to provide property tax relief for 2 years. That means no money would be available to restore employee concessions or add community services, including those cut in previous years. Now keep in mind, with this option, the city would still need to find a solution to this problem in 2 years, and this could hurt the city's strong credit rating. Option number 4, use some of the surplus money to provide tax relief for 1 more year, along with some of our reserve funds. But the issue will have to be addressed again next year. Now with this option, the city could improve some proposed services, but not all. And this option could hurt the city's strong credit rating.
Some of these other options are short-term, which means they're only going to provide a solution for 1 year, maybe 2 years. And it really is just kicking the can down the road, and we will be back in this situation in a couple of years asking for a solution from our citizens.
Option number 5, cut $37 million from the general fund by making significant cuts that would directly affect the city's ability to serve residents and business owners. The city manager has outlined $44 million in services from which to choose. This includes cutting $14 million from the police department, $10 million from the fire department, more than $2 million in library services, and $6 million from the city's parks and recreation department. In a service business like the city, dollars translate into the people who provide the services, like 911 response, recreation programs, senior and youth services, and more.
Since 2010, we've been drawing down our fund balance reserve for our GO bonds, and we're at the end of that. So this is the last year that we can use that reserve to pay our debt service.
How will the city tackle this debt service situation for the long term? The plan is to refund and restructure bonds as long as rates remain where they are now. Until then, one of the mentioned 5 options must happen in order to pay the city's debt service for the facilities we've built. This is critical in order to keep the city's strong credit rating, which lets the city borrow money at a low interest rate to fund projects that are important to you. A look at these 5 options are on page 5 of your trial budget summary booklet.
Here's a look at the new services proposed in the trial budget. Many residents feel that protecting the public should be the city's top priority. The mayor and council agree it's critically important to keep everyone safe. That's why public safety and criminal justice amounts to 72% of the general fund in this trial budget. The new budget adds $2.4 million for the first year of a 3-year, $11 million plan for Phoenix police officers to start using body cameras.
Well, body cameras mean a lot of things. Safety is one of them, transparency is one of them, trust is another thing. For our residents, it allows them to have greater confidence in their police department.
The budget would also allow the department to hire a director of employee assistance and wellness.
Our employees are our most valuable asset. We need to make sure we take care of our employees. By hiring this position, it allows us to do that.
Now to the fire department. The budget would spend $2.8 million in one-time costs to replace the obsolete Emergency Transportation Billing System, known as EPCR.
We are the last large city in the state of Arizona to move forward with EPCR.
Electronic records will let our paramedics spend more time on patient care and less time on paperwork, and make payments from insurance carriers more efficient.
The latest technology for us to do our jobs more efficiently, protect the information of the community, bill efficiently so the taxpayers are getting revenue back into the pockets in order to provide services to the city of Phoenix.
The budget also calls for spending $1 million to begin rebuilding the road to North Mountain, along with fixing the radio tower to make it meet industry standards. The radio tower is critical to the city's public safety radio system. Now, to dedicated public safety special revenue funds. Because these funds will be balanced next year, the budget includes the hiring of 130 police officers in 2016-2017.
Other than 2015, we hadn't hired any police officers for almost 6 years.
The council also approved a plan to hire 36 firefighters next fiscal year.
We have been fortunate over the last couple of years to be able to hire minimal amounts of firefighters. This will allow us to fill all of our vacancies.
Now, let's look at dedicated Phoenix Parks and Preserves initiative funds. Money would be used to maintain new dog parks, recreation centers, and playing fields. From the Development Services Fund, which is paid for by building permit and inspection fees, is this proposal. The city is seeing a huge spike in construction, which is great news. To keep up with demand, the budget calls for adding 8 new positions to meet the needs of all the growth. Out of the Solid Waste Special Enterprise Funds, the trial budget calls for adding 15 positions and equipment needed to support curbside green organics, diversion, and illegal dumping programs. This will ensure that Phoenix continues to be a national leader in keeping waste out of city landfills. The budget calls for a few additions that directly will help the members of our community. They include new funding to support the city's continued effort to get veterans off the streets and back on their feet.
So the proposed funding will support peer navigators who help veterans living on the street make all the connections they need to make to get into housing and stay housed.
And money to add staff and supplies for after-school programs for disengaged youth.
This funding would really allow us to increase our programming by offering STEM programs, physical activities, as well as interaction between the youth and adults in many of our city parks.
Looking ahead, one of the biggest challenges to the general fund continues to be the cost of employee pensions. The trial budget reflects an increase of $15 million in civilian employee pension costs. But since the mayor and city council took action on pension reform and the voters made their voices heard, these short-term increases will slow over time with a savings of more than $1 billion over the next 2 decades. Now to the police and fire pensions, which will go up $21 million. This is the result of a state Supreme Court decision. Increases in future years are partly because of other pending court challenges and system funding issues. Also, proposed reforms could help reduce how much the city will pay in the future. Then there's employee compensation. For 6 years, city employees have been part of the shared solution of our budget issues, agreeing to almost 6% in cuts to compensation. 4.2% of that is still in effect. The trial budget proposes to responsibly restore some of it, 2.6%, or $44 million, over the next 2 years. This is an investment in our most valuable resource, the workers. As a service business, the city depends on good workers to provide outstanding services. Keep in mind, the budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like.
The budget is really for the people of Phoenix, and so for it to be the best budget possible, it needs to reflect what people have to tell us, and that's why we're out to listen to the residents in the trial budget.
In summary, the trial budget has several options, including solving the debt service issue by raising the combined property tax by 35 cents to $2.17. This would allow the city to use surplus money to add critical services to our police, fire, and other city departments. It would also allow the city to restore some concessions made by city workers 6 years ago.
15 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. Make sure you pick up a budget pamphlet outlining all the proposals and options at any of the public meetings or online at phoenix.gov/budget. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using hashtag PhoenixBudget. Thank you for attending this budget hearing and being part of a very important process. The City of Phoenix is committed to its mission of improving the quality of life in Phoenix through the efficient delivery of outstanding public services.
All right, I mentioned that after the video, which goes into a lot of detail, obviously, of some of the choices we have to make, we are going to hear from our host here tonight, Bishop Thomas. Bishop, I know you and your church members, as a matter of course, pray for us at the city. Absolutely. Now you've seen the video. We need your prayers more than ever. Bishop Thomas.
In fact, I think I'm going to get some oil, and with that kind of work to do, we got some work to do. But I'm so very grateful, certainly to the mayor and to all the council persons and to all of you that are present. We're just so thankful to be a part of this process. This is democracy at work. I feel like a citizen here tonight, you know, that we really are being able to come together and to express our various views on how we get this work done. This is not the city's work. This is our work. All of us who are citizens of Phoenix, this is our work. And so I'm grateful, certainly to the mayor, for gathering us together. And he's really the host. We're just the site, but he's hosting us. And I'm so grateful for him coming out and doing this. Of course, there are some very, very critical issues, as were raised there tonight, that we have to solve, and hopefully not just kick the bucket down the road. Hopefully we can grapple with these issues and solve them through this process. And so I invite all of you, I'm thankful for you showing up tonight and for being present. Members of our church, wave at me. If you're members of Pilgrim Rest, wave at me. Thank you for coming, being a part of tonight's process. Feel free when it's time to have comments to come forward and ask your questions. Again, thank all of you for coming. I look forward to a lively discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks, Bishop, for hosting us here tonight and hosting the city on so many important events that originate right here at this church. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude and the members of your church. We have one other councilwoman who was able to come in during the video, and she wanted to say a few welcoming remarks, and then myself, the city manager, and the council members will be at that table, and I think you'll have a chance to come to the microphone, those that filled the cards, and give whatever testimony you have or any questions you might have about the city budget. That's why we're here tonight. Councilman Gallego.
It was my New Year's resolution to never speak after Bishop Thomas, and I've blown it, because with eloquent words like that, it's certainly difficult to follow, but thank you to the Pilgrim's Rest community for welcoming us here today, and thank you to the mayor whose idea was this budget hearing. It's wonderful to hear from all of our citizens, and we make such significant changes to the budget in response to the feedback that we get at these hearings, so your time is well spent. It's also wonderful that we are in this particular location because some of the programs that are proposed for expansion, including My Brother's Keeper, really began with the faith community and this location in particular. And so it'd be good to get the feedback on what folks think about those programs, where we're going, where we're headed. So look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we call your names tonight, we'll give about 3 minutes to speak. We've got probably about 25 people who would like to speak. We'd ask you to come forward to one of these 2 microphones. The reason is so that everyone can hear, but also because Channel 11 is filming this entire hearing, as it does all of them. It will be rebroadcast on Channel 11, and as well as it will be available on our city YouTube channel for anybody to look at. We also are taking minutes. Those minutes are distributed to all council members for all meetings. So your voice will be heard in many different ways and made available to our council. So with that, we'll begin. And our first speaker is Scott Safranca.
good evening. So, for those who don't know who I am, or why I have a service dog, I am a City of Phoenix police officer. 2 years ago, I was shot in the line of duty and critically injured. Prior to that, for 6 years, I served actually this very area and this very church. I'm now a missing persons detective. But beyond that, I also live in this community. I pay taxes to the city, and I pay my debt to the city. Here we are again for another contract and facing cuts and broken promises yet again. It seems over the last 2 years, while increasing revenue, we still cannot find a way to fully restore that which was taken or what we have given up. Over the course of the last 6 years, first responders have given up approximately 6% of their total compensation, much of this which was originally promised to us upon signing contracts with the city. Approximately a small portion of that has been returned, yet we are still approximately 4.2% down on those concessions and still being asked to do more with less. Our combined cuts have saved the city close to $500 million, which allowed the city to save programs and continue to provide needed services for the community. The City of Phoenix residents have faced many challenges in this time. Along with those residents, both fire and police have faced those challenges alongside of you. We continue to be short-staffed in all departments, and recruiting will not be easy with further cuts to our salaries or benefits. Other cities can offer more money, better benefits than we can, which will draw more recruitment. Phoenix used to draw top recruits because of these things, but now we face some who want to take away part of our retirement, our holiday pay, and even regular days that we work. Injuries to first responders are on the rise. This places a greater burden on the continued officers and firefighters that are out there. Now we're asking detectives to return control to fill gaps, taking away cases that they're solving for the citizens. The number of officers that work holidays has been reduced, making it more difficult to fill calls. While all this does increase the risk of tragedy, not just to officers and firefighters, but to the city employees as well. Over the years, I've heard a lot about how we'll be taken care of if we do our job, or promises to restore wages and benefits. I have heard a lot of things, but the city does not get something as simple as allowing a service dog for an officer. How can we trust you to build a new budget? I implore you to reinstate the 4.2% we are owed to make us whole again. While $44 million in total monies may seem like a lot, it's a small price to pay for the men and women who risk everything to protect the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, officer, very much. Angela Andrews, also wanting to speak on the Phoenix Police budget, and the next speaker will be Cynthia Peters. Good to see you.
I am here today to speak on behalf of my husband, who is a 20-year veteran with the Phoenix Police Department. I have a photo that I wanted to bring to show you. In it, my husband is in his dress uniform. He is holding our 3-year-old child in the air, and they're giving each other a kiss. It is my all-time favorite photograph of them. But I didn't bring it because my husband does not like the photograph. See, he was in his dress uniform that day because he had just returned home from Phoenix Officer John Huff's funeral after he was killed in the line of duty. My husband doesn't like this photo because he said this is exactly the type of photo that they put on a big screen at your funeral. Now, an arbitrator recommended that we return the police and fire back to their 40.2% rates, but it was said that Phoenix fire and police had to be treated like everybody else. But you know what? Any one of us could die at any moment. That is true. But do we think about it every time we put our clothes on for work every day? Police and fire do. Do we come home relieved that we made it home one more day alive? Do you worry that every single missed call from your spouse might have been their last? Do you go out of burning buildings, or do you go into them? Do you run away from that sharpshooters are towards them. When you believe someone has burglarized your home, do you stay or do you leave until someone else has come and cleared it for you? Do you drive high speeds to chase after wrong-way drivers, dangerous felons, and drunk drivers? Do you change your appearance, go undercover, knowing that you can be killed at any moment? Do you talk to children who have been molested, beaten, whipped, and starved? Have you ever seen a dead body? Have you ever been to an autopsy? Do you know what human decomposition smells like? Have you ever seen someone kill themselves? Have you ever shot someone? Or been shot by someone? Or killed someone? And then come home and cry because you took someone's life because that was your job? Have you ever told a stranger that someone they loved died? Have you ever pulled a child out of a pool, a canal, or a hot car? You know, I honestly could do this all day long. But my point is that police and fire face these kinds of things on a regular basis. These are not movies. These are not televisions. This is what they do in their career. Police and fire are different. And this community relies on them to be different. Now, I heard a claim the other day that Phoenix police officers are more concerned with manpower than their salary. And that may be true, but this is not a separate issue. Citizens, you need to know that your experienced, highly trained police officers are leaving in droves. They are retiring or they are quitting for other jobs where they will no longer be protecting you. All the experience that they've gained from years of training and working is gone in a flash. We need to make sure that that does not happen. We need to make sure they get what they deserve, what they worked for, and what they were promised. Let's make sure that Phoenix stays a safe place to be. Let's make sure they are returned in full, not partially, what was promised. And in return, they will be here to continue to protect you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Andrews. Cynthia Peters is next, followed by Donna Reiner.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm Michael Cynthia Peters. I'm a former city employee. And it saddens for me to see that $6 million is going to be cut from the Parks and Recreation budget. Parks and Recreation provides vital services to our kids and to our teens and to our seniors. And as a homeowner, I'd be willing to pay the extra taxes so that we can restore some of those programs that are slated to be cut in this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peters. Donna Reiner will be next. I think City Manager may have one quick comment as it relates to the Parks and Recreation Department budget.
Just real quickly, as Cynthia sort of alluded to it at the end, it is really a choice. The trial budget says, should we raise property taxes to pay our debt service so that we don't have to take money from other things to pay our debt service? Cynthia talked about, I think it was option 5 in the list, is if people don't want to do what she said she was willing to do, which is pay a little more, then you might have to go to cutting services to pay for it. So just to clarify, there's not a proposal to cut those services, but it is an option if people do not want to do the other options of maybe property tax or others. Thanks.
My name is Donna Reiner. I'm in District 4, and I'm here as a member of the City of Phoenix Arts and Culture Commission. So, I want to thank you for proposing to add $50,000 more into the grants program. Now, this might seem a little silly to some people, but that $50,000 is generally going to go to other arts organizations that provide training for school children. And we all know that the arts programs are cut right and left in the schools. And students who participate in the arts develop critical and creative thinking skills, everything that we need to know to work together. Cooperation, social skills, self-confidence. This is going to make a big difference when they go out into the world and look for a job. And we also are now providing, currently, we would like to expand that, create aging programs. All things that, these are services that are not available to the general public if we don't have this additional funds. However, The only thing that I will find fault with is the proposed cut to support cultural facilities management and the property management services. That would negatively impact the Phoenix Art Museum, the Phoenix Theater, the Children's Museum. These are prime examples of cultural institutions in our city that are not only available for the residents, but people come from around the country to see these places, attend performances, see art exhibits, and enjoy. And I know that it's not in there, but it certainly would be nice if we could provide more money for taking care of the public arts. We have spent millions of dollars on our public artworks, yet we only allot $49,000 from the general fund to take care of that maintenance. It gets worse each year, so I'm going to say that again, we really need to do that. And as a homeowner, yes, I'm willing to pay more in property taxes. I think it would be horrendous to make that $6 million cut, proposed cut, in the parks. I mean, I'm not using every park, but someday I'm going to be one of those senior citizens that might need those senior citizen centers. It's devastating. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reiner. Heather Powell wishes not to speak, but wants to make it clear that she supports full restoration of public safety compensation, particularly for firefighters, because she supports whatever needs to be done to restore firefighter compensation to 100%. They work extremely hard all hours of the day to save our families' lives. They deserve more than what you are proposing for them. I expect the city to uphold their commitment, just as our firefighters have stayed committed to supporting our families, no matter what day it is, no matter what time. Please do what's right. Thank you very much, Ms. Powell, for that testimony. It will be made for the record. Next, Greta Rogers, followed by David Ware. Ms. Rogers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greta Rogers, and I reside in District 6. And my plan this year, as it has been in previous years, is to attend as many of these meetings throughout the city as I am able to do. I support the increase in the sales tax unequivocally. We haven't had one for over 20 years. And a little bit additional, 35 cents, isn't going to break anybody or any household. I want it passed, and I want it passed 9-0. I sat with Ed Zerker early in January and discussed 3 essentials that the budget must address, and said they're non-negotiable, and I haven't changed my mind, so I'll share them with you. Number 1 is restore all employee salaries to the level that they have been promised and you've reneged on. Get them back to full salary expectation and promise. No half this year and half next year. All of it now. PPD and PFD are essential to the safety of every single one of us sitting here and the hundreds of thousands who aren't here. And they are owed 4.2% to bring them to parity. Not a raise, a parity. They are owed 4.2, you give them 4.2. And if you have to reduce your salaries to do that, so be it. And I want the street department funded adequately for the next 2 years so that they can make serious improvement, plans and improvement to our deteriorated, disintegrating streets. Last week, riding to Maryvale with a gentleman who took me there, we hit 2 potholes that almost swallowed the car on McDowell Road. This isn't unusual. And this in a city that thinks it's a great city? What a joke. We can't afford this baloney. Take care of the streets in a responsible and essential manner. These are all non-negotiable, they're essential, and do it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers, for your testimony. With regard to your request that the City Council unanimously support the City Manager proposal, well, we are in the House of Miracles here, aren't we? The church, yeah, so a miracle could happen on that one, Greta. Thank you so much. David Ware is next, and Carolyn Chapman follow. David Ware, good to see you. Want to talk about street issues as well.
Good evening. My name is David Ware, and I'm a resident of South Phoenix. And my question is just simple. How do I go about getting my streets in the neighborhood repaved? That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, good. We do have professionals representing virtually all of the city departments here today. Is anyone here from Streets Department? The reason why I bring it up is because the citizens of Phoenix, there's one. All right, thank you so much. Maybe you can talk to Mr. Ware afterwards. But the voters of Phoenix did support Proposition 104 in August, and Proposition 104 does have a significant amount of new resources for street repaving, and there is a schedule that's been put out. So hopefully, for at least the major street repaving, in terms of neighborhood streets, that'd be something that would have to go to the department level to find out when you're scheduled for it, and if there's a good rationale for your neighborhood to jump to the front of the line, maybe there's more kids that are playing in the street, etc. We do make exceptions to that as well. How about Carolyn Chapman in support of the trial budget from District 8? Good to see you.
Mayor, members of the council, city manager. My name is Carolyn Chapman. Thank you so much for convening this hearing this evening and for all you're doing every day to make things better, and for the opportunity to speak about the city manager's trial budget. As a District 8 homeowner, a 33-year resident of Phoenix, and a taxpayer, I want to express my support for the trial budget. While I do not savor paying taxes and fees, I do understand that that is the method for paying for the high-quality services that I need and want. I'm glad to see the introduction of the revenue or income streams into the budget mix after almost a decade of cutting services and employees while holding the line on fees and taxes. We cannot continue to cut, and reduce, and remain a viable first-class city. There must be a balance of revenue enhancements, and while we have a lot of ground to make up on that side. There is often talk about running the city like a business. Well, the top performing businesses understand that their greatest asset is their people, their human capital, and they invest in them accordingly. I urge you to do the same as one of the largest employers in our state. The well-being of the city's workforce is directly related to the quality of life for all of us. Moreover, there is an abundance of talk these days about the disappearing middle class and the need to keep it intact. Keeping city jobs is one way to do that. So please keep that in mind and do not continue to contribute to the disappearing middle class while lamenting its disappearance. While I support the trial budget, I am concerned that the city is still operating in recovery and restoration mode instead of growth and supplemental mode, with the exception of a few public safety and enterprise enhancements. It concerns me that our city and state continue to lag behind in the economic recovery. I am especially concerned about the impact on the most vulnerable, our youth and our elderly. I am also concerned, like has been previously mentioned, about our basic infrastructure needs, especially in our older and blended neighborhoods, like the area in which I live on East Islands. The streets and drainage systems are woefully inadequate and need immediate and long-term attention. I continue to urge you to aggressively, religiously, and strategically pursue high-quality, high-wage jobs, quality employers, aggressively, religiously, and strategically seek grants, aggressively, religiously, and strategically collaborate with public and private partners to link and leverage services, aggressively, religiously, and strategically use citizen volunteers, and wisely develop and implement a long-term revenue enhancement strategy. Again, I support the city manager trial budget that includes a tax increase and no service reduction. May your budget decision be a strategic and sustainable one that ensures the highest quality of life now and in the future for the residents of Phoenix. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Chapman, for excellent testimony and for your long-standing service to the citizens of Phoenix, an outstanding career as a city official. Gail Knight is next, wanting to speak on youth and senior funding, followed by Teresa Stewart, wanting to speak about street issues and lighting issues. Ms. Knight.
Good evening, Mayor Stanton, Councilman Nowakowski, Vice Mayor Nagle, and citizens here tonight. I had a real concern about if we don't have the citizens to support the taxes, the increase, because we all want to maintain quality services, where will the cuts occur for youth and seniors? What percentage of that cut? And what particular areas of the city? Will it be equitable across the board as to where those cuts will occur? Continuing to be very focused on, as was stated by Ms. Chapman, the vulnerable areas of our community to ensure that they continue to have a quality of life in their communities as well. I'm always in support of our police and our fire because we need to always have public service and public safety number one. There hasn't been a budget hearing where that wasn't the number one issue of our community. So I hope that we continue to stay focused on that. And without employees, the city does not exist. So it's important that we take care of our employees that provide public services on behalf of the city of Phoenix. And so I hope that you will look at that, have the what ifs. Where is that going to come from? Where is the support systems going to come from in order for that to happen? I know the city has Volunteer Phoenix, but we need to look beyond volunteers. How do we get our businesses and our corporations and our foundations involved in supporting the city of Phoenix as well? And so I hope that these are some of the issues that you look at and consider beyond if individuals say, I don't want to pay more taxes. Because I have no problems with paying it if it's going back in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Knight. Teresa Stewart is next. If it's on, I hope it's on. Yeah, of course.
I have never done this.
There you go.
Okay, good. My name is Teresa Stewart Budada. I was raised in New England where education is #1 in the world. I graduated from the #1 high school in the #1 state. I'd like to help you guys, you're in bad shape. Number 48. I've got a master's degree in education and a year of law school, but can't seem to become employed. They don't like my personality because it doesn't fit in. I have a lot to offer, and I've never been to one of these, and I'm glad I was here, and I thank Bishop for giving a heads up, because I've always wanted to come to one. I've been a member of Pilgrim for 20 years. I've been in Arizona for 20 years. I've raised my children here. And I've been an educator, and I just think it's sad that there's no mention whatsoever. I know I said streets and lighting. I live on Van Buren. It's the pits. It's got 36 potholes and 16 blocks. It's got a porn strip club next door to the school. Something is wrong with that because sexual predators are everywhere and the police don't come. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, appreciate your testimony. Not wishing to speak, but wanting to have a voice heard, Sean Ross wants to turn public safety workers their full pay and benefits to pre-recession levels. Next speaker wishing to speak will be Craig Tripkin, who's a leader on homeless issues. And then finally, next will be Liz Alexander after that. Councilman Tripkin, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for hosting this. And I want to start out by, I'm here to speak on behalf of homeless people. Excuse me. And I want to start by saying that I want to thank the mayor so much for his commitment to addressing homelessness in the city. It's been a welcome change from some of the past, and you've certainly been a leader on that, and I want to thank you for that. Central Arizona Shelter Services is proposed to be cut by $52,000 if you don't accept options 1 or options 2 in the budget. Option 5 is a $52,000 cut. We were receiving $921,000 in 2007-8, and last year we received $740,000 from the city. The city is our major funder, and we are down 20% in the last 9 years, and if this cut goes through, we'll be down to 25% of what we were in 2007, 2008. I want to point out that the Central Arizona Shelter Services provides access to over 4,700 unduplicated persons in a year, 62% of whom leave within 3 weeks. So we are a true emergency shelter that works, and I think that's borne out by the numbers. We provide access to dental care on the campus, medical care on the campus, housing services, employment services, and many other things. And I think that the homeless people are not inclined to come to participate in a hearing like this tonight, but I thank you very much for your support, and I hope you'll support option 1, which includes the tax increase in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Tripkin. Next speaker will be Liz Alexander, wishing to speak about food tax and body cameras. And then how about Aurora and Erlinda, wishing to speak about senior center issues. Ms. Alexander.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Liz Alexander, and I am a member of Pilgrim Rest. And I just want you to know that I'm very happy to give my money for a cause, and that is for tax, if it's going to be used properly, and to improve the betterment of our community, our policemen. I live in a historical area off of Thomas and 19th Avenue, and I live just around the corner from the state troopers. But my problem is that the world and its people, and we need to have more support, body cameras, because the people that's on the street protecting us, they are at risk. So I would plead that you take into consideration body cameras, and I'll be happy to pay my 35 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alexander. So Erlinda and Aurora are next, wishing to speak about support for senior centers.
This is my mother, who's going to tell you how old she is and what she'd like to, what the mayor and the city council, what she'd like for them not to do.
I'm 90 years old, and I try to survive at the center. I help every way that I can. So my people, as well as others, they continue coming to the center because it's a very good place to be, and you learn a lot. You see other people's problems, you make them lower. And if you can help, you help. If not, you try to go further. And I do as much as I can to help at the center. And they there that work, they appreciate it, they always look forward. When I can't go to the center, I get very upset because I know they miss me, and they always ask for me.
I am now a senior citizen, okay? I always went and helped out at her place. I am now able to say that I am a senior. I really want you to think about closing any senior centers. Last time around, there were 5 senior centers on the block. 3 are gone, 2 are saved. So I'm hoping that there aren't any at all on the block this time around. My other thing was, usually you have a meeting during the day for seniors to attend, because frankly, in the evening, a lot of us don't want to drive. I'd like to adjust that. Are you going to try to make a meeting for us during the day? Is any of that possible? Since you've already announced these 15 meetings, is that at all possible? Do you think you'll be able to do that?
The answer is yes, and I'm not sure, do we have any meetings scheduled currently during the day?
Not right now.
Okay, that would have to be one we have to add. The suggestion well taken, no, we've done that.
Okay.
And we always try to have.
At least one.
At least one, that's
so-
very wise,
And
okay.
if you do, we'll be there. The other thing I just wanted to say was, since it's seniors and children that seem to be the largest growing population in Phoenix, you really got to think about the little ones and about the seniors. It's really important. Also, have you looked into any grants in terms of seniors and the younger ones in order to help fund the city of Phoenix in that area? And that's about it. Thanks for your time, and we like being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your testimony. I see from your shirt you represented the Sunny Slope Senior Center very well. So Slope Senior Center should be very proud. Thank you very much for coming down and saying those nice things about senior center staff workers. We have some of the best employees that work in our senior centers. The request
I
was
just want to say they're absolutely marvelous. So if you want to give them some extra money, they'd be happy to take it.
Thank you so much. And the request was that maybe we can add one during the daytime during this budget period. That would be easier for the seniors to attend. Next speaker will be Carol Coles Henry, who wants to talk about food tax, body cameras, youth employment, seniors, parks, everything in the budget. Carol's an expert in everything. She knows the city better than anyone. So Carol Coles Henry, followed by Vice Mayor Calvin Good.
Thank you, Mayor, City Manager, City Council members, and Bishop for hosting this important meeting here at Pilgrim Rest. I am a member. I am also a retiree from the City of Phoenix with almost 30 years of service. I understand the importance of having a balanced budget. The budget cannot be balanced, in my opinion, on the most vulnerable populations of the city, which includes seniors, youth, homeless, etc. I'm a District 8 resident, very proudly wear that banner. I want to share with you, as the 6th largest city in the country, I do agree that the long-term stability and viability of this city is important. We have the tough decision of dealing with tax increase or food tax increase, and I support somewhere between option 1 and 2. I think it should be a combination of both, with an opportunity possibly to expand some city services. We get creative with that. I'm here to speak to 5 key areas that I feel are essential and important. The first one is to talk a little bit about body cameras as a technology commitment of the city in this growing city. I do believe that we need to continue our commitment to body cameras, and boots on the ground are important, but body cameras are essential. And when we begin to talk about trust, accountability, and transparency, we need to get back to the idea of the commitment made back in 2010 as part of the city's commitment with the civic engagement, the community engagement task force. The second area I'd like to talk about is the South Mountain area. I am also a resident in that community. The gentleman and Carolyn both spoke about the aging infrastructure over there. There's a huge need for a storm sewer system on Baseline Road. When we get lots of rain, all you need is a boat and a paddle, and you can begin to paddle down Baseline Road. We need a storm sewer system, a proper drainage in that community, from 7th Street going east and possibly central. I recommend a study of the area in terms of water and the drainage off of South Mountain into the community. Churches are getting flooded. People's homes are getting flooded when we have heavy rains. There's not been since 1991 any street paving on Dobbins Road. I feel that's not acceptable. For 25 years for there not to be any paving in that community. Street lights are needed, bus shelters, and so I think we have an opportunity to improve, whether we use community capital improvement project money or the 2050 money, but I'd like to see something creatively done for the community. In the area of parks and recreation programs, I think that the city should reinstitutionalize the Cool Kids Pool Program. I think that free hours for low-income youth to attend pools. We're in 115 degrees, young people need something to do. I believe we should expand the senior services, and more importantly, summer youth employment jobs sponsored by the city in city government, giving young people exposure to city jobs and employment opportunities for their future careers is important. In the area of equal opportunity, I believe that we should refrain from any cuts to the very complex compliance responsibilities that the city has for federal and state compliance timelines on processing complaints and certifications. I do believe we need to also, lastly, expand the Small Business Enterprise Program, which really is an economic development effort to give opportunities for all small businesses. So what I believe, if we take a look at our historical commitment as a city and as an organization to the community, Phoenix has continues to grow. I believe our average age in this city is around 32 and a half. That means that we have a younger population with younger kids, and we need to get back to the idea that we raise all ships at the same time. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Carol. Good to see you as always. You are right, we have a disproportionately young population and a disproportionately older population in the city of Phoenix, which creates some unique opportunities, but also unique challenges in terms of providing city service. I think the city manager wanted to respond to a couple things you mentioned in your testimony.
First, I just want to thank Carol because she has chaired an important initiative called the Community Police Trust Initiative, and so Carol and Julian Navazny have led that. Thank you. We do still have Cool Kids. We probably aren't advertising as much as we should, but Cool Kids does still exist with donations from community businesses for free swimming for kids. And Inger Erickson back there, Parks Director, can give you more of that. And I would just say on flooding, it's been, to me, the number one priority I've heard from Vice Mayor Gallego. I don't know if she described it as that, but I've heard from her, yes, she would agree. Flooding is really important. And we have committed some extra resources. One of the things I always tell people is to know that there is a flood control district of Maricopa County whose members are the 5 board of supervisor members. They have the primary responsibility for funding flood control in Maricopa County. The city does provide a bit of money for that and some, but you are paying taxes to Maricopa County to provide flood control. So I would encourage you to also contact your flood control district of Maricopa County board members and let them know that opinion as well. We certainly have been doing that on behalf of the residents of Phoenix. Vice Mayor Gallego has been doing that. But we hear you about Baseline Road, and there are some projects that we have put underway down at Baseline. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager. Vice Mayor Callahan Good is next. I want to talk about youth summer employment and some of the other District 8 issues. And then Ms. Pleasant will be next when you speak about PAC after-school programs. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank all of you for coming to District 8, where I lived for over 60 years. We have some concerns here, and certainly we appreciate your listening to, and not only listening, but doing something about them. Affordable housing. Not too long ago, you approved a 100-foot building there at 12th Street in Washington. Well, the developer one day would get the money. So the zoning is still there. We feel that our district is under siege from developers. And we certainly hope that you will give us some help in terms of the kind of development that is done in our district. We think there's a need for more affordable housing, for instance. and I attended a press conference recently talking about affordable housing. But the housing that's going up is not affordable. And we feel that our district is under siege. I live at 1508 East Jefferson Street, and I've lived there for 60 years. And I don't plan to move. Certainly, I do believe that we should have more affordable housing. And I would certainly beseech the city of Phoenix to think in terms of not turning over our area to developers. But certainly we live here, and I don't plan to move anywhere else. And with the good Lord's blessing, I'm going to live another few years to continue to speak up in reference to it. Summer youth employment. At the summer, we've had summer youth employment. I'm certainly hoping we'll continue to provide that kind of service for our young people. Swimming pool, yes, we've had it at East Lake, and I certainly hope that that will continue. Food taxes, property taxes, I guess food we all have to eat. And I'm more inclined to believe that we should tax people's food more than it is now. I hope that next time you schedule the meetings, that you give some consideration. Now, we'll combine with the district, District 8, District 4, 3920 West Baseline, and then with another district, 1919 East Thomas. But consider that some of my folks don't have transportation to get way out to those meetings. So, district, where it's headed out tonight, we certainly am grateful to the bishop for having him here, but many of the folks did not get notice of that, so they're not here tonight. Summer youth program, I talked about that, swimming pool, food taxes, affordable housing, we're under siege. If any of you doubt that, come with me. I get notices every 2 weeks. Sell me your property. And then they want to build these high rises. They're not affordable. Have you gone down to look at what the cost is to live? So I say to you, City Council, remember that we too want to continue to live here. We don't want to be dispossessed. Again, I thank you for having me here tonight, and we hope we can get a little more consideration when it comes to zoning in our area, turning it over to the developers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very good. And Ms. Pleasant, I realize did not wish to speak, but you want to come down and speak? Okay, perfect, okay. Polling locations on non-presidential election, and then PAC after-school programs. Good to see you.
Hi, my name is Ron Pleasant. I am also a member of the program last. I was not made aware of this meeting until I went to pick my daughter up from the after-school program over at Colby's Campbell. They're very concerned about that program closing at that location. I do have a suggestion. Perhaps you might be able to partner up with some of the nonprofit organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, the Proc Center, maybe try to get some, some communication going to try to avoid the closure of those programs, because they're vitally important to a single parent like me. I've been a homeowner in the Phoenix area for over 20 years. I pay my taxes, and I think that maybe perhaps you might want to take consideration for how that will affect me as a single parent having to leave work to go and transport my child and then other persons as well. How that can affect our livelihood. Yes, and I did have a question in reference to how your proposed budget cuts will affect our upcoming election in November. It's not listed here, but I didn't know whether we didn't have enough money to pay for the polling locations. I know we both here at the church. I wasn't able to do so. I had to stand in line for over 3 hours to go to the community center. So I did have some concern as to whether or not this proposed budget cut is going to affect my right to vote here in the upcoming November election. And that's it. Oh, and then can I just say one more thing?
Mike is yours.
Okay. I have gone to a city council meeting last year and tried to contact Ms. Kate Gallegos, our city council representative for my District 8, with no success in return phone calls. I sent letters. I spoke to you about the constant letters that we received regarding my failure to maintain an alleyway, which I don't own. I built a fence to secure myself, separate from the fence. We've got vagabonds. We've got people who throw their trash. And why am I, not just myself, but I've also canvassed a number of owners in my community why are we tasked with receiving these threatening letters and harassment regarding failure to maintain those properties that we don't own? So I have a suggestion for that as well. Perhaps we can maybe take some of the inmates in our local jails, maybe provide them a work release program where they can go through and try to resolve those type of issues instead of seeing these harassing letters to the property owners, and we have no control over that. I know that that's a city ordinance that you said that the residents of the Phoenix area had voted to sustain. I could never find that information. I have no idea. And Kate, you're here. I sent letters to you, your staff calls me, but you've never called me. But that's a serious concern that we have in my South Phoenix area. That's all.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Pleasant, for that testimony. I'll say that, I guess, on the issue of after-school programs, it obviously will depend on which option the city council ultimately adopts. If we adopt option 1 or 2, then the after-school programs will not be impacted. If we do adopt an option, one of the options in which $37 million in service cuts would have to be made, I'm sure that some after-school programs will be reviewed. Obviously, the testimony here tonight has been overwhelmingly in favor of not looking at the budget cut option. I don't want to get too far afield into the election issues other than to say that the county elections department blew it badly in that last presidential election, requiring people to wait 5 and 6 hours. I did send a letter to the Department of Justice asking for an investigation as it relates to Voting Right Act violations, because obviously the people that can't wait in line 5 and 6 hours will disproportionately be people with disabilities or seniors who are protected by the Voting Rights Act. And then obviously we had fewer voting sites in the city of Phoenix, and we are a majority minority city, and I believe that there were serious Voting Rights Act implications. We did find out today that the Department of Justice is investigating what happened here in Maricopa County in that last election. So they sent a letter to the county indicating that they have begun that investigation. So that's a very a good thing. And I think the county, there's 2 messages tonight. The county needs a better job funding elections and funding flood control. But this is a city budget hearing, not a county budget hearing. And with regard to alleyways, I don't know if anyone is here from Neighborhood Services who might be able to talk to Ms. Pleasant about alleyways. Yes, property owners are required to maintain your alleyway 50% of the way into the alley. So ultimately that is your property, even though the city uses it right away. We have an easement to use that. It's actually each individual property owner's responsibility to keep up their front of their house as well as back of house, including into that alleyway. So I don't know all the details of it. We'll make sure that you and your neighbors understand your full rights and responsibility as it relates to alleys. Okay, Jason Stokes, who wanted to speak, supporting the proposed property tax adjustment and full concession restoration to our city employees, and that will be followed by Ms. Strockman, Onismus Strawn, excuse me, that's the correct pronunciation. Mr. Stokes, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman McCaskey, City Manager. My name is Jason Stokes. I'm a native and resident of Phoenix and a taxpayer. I actually grew up in Mount Hartfield, went to Hartfield. I was married down the street to St. Mark's. Everybody's familiar with that. First off, I'd like to thank all members of the community that came out tonight. I think I forgot to mention that for 24 years I've been a city employee. I've taken a lot of pride in working for the city. I'm not a police officer or a firefighter. However, at this point, every employee that we have at the city of Phoenix is a critical position. Now Detective Sofranka, he's a hero in my opinion. I wouldn't dispute anything that Ms. Andrews had to say. But what I'm hearing out of the community tonight is we want quality services. We care about the quality of our lives. We care about our children. We care about our parents, our seniors. And we're willing to pay for it. And I'm one of those people. I'm willing to accept the tax when increase. When I look at what the city has done, we want better transit. We came out, we voted, we supported better transit for the city. We support, all I'm hearing are we want to increase services. When we look at across the valley and we look at what the city of Phoenix has done, it's held costs down. Held costs down at the worst time for our community. When everybody was having it the hardest, we held things down. Hopefully it's starting to come back. You know, we've been in concessions for 6 years. I applaud the city manager for having the courage to propose a property tax increase. I hope that our council has the courage to support it. I would ask for one minor change, which is a full restoral of our concessions. For 6 years, we're not asking for a raise. We're asking to go back to where we were 6 years ago. You know, in addition to our cuts, like the rest of you, our health care has increased. Now, these things don't register as cuts, but our health care has increased. Loaf of bread's increased. There's no hearings when they do that. Those just happen. Now, you know, boy, for a little while here, gas is a really good deal, and now it's starting to go back up. When we talk about $4.35 a month, just to put gas in my car, that's more than $4.35 per trip to the gas station. You know, so I'm glad that you're here, Mayor, Councilman, Vice Mayor. But that's what I'm hearing. I was at the one at Phoenix Children's Hospital, and it was the same thing. We want services. We need your support for full concession restoration to all employees. All are critical. We don't want to position one against another. If the police car won't start, if the road is impassable, if the 911 call doesn't get answered, all the police officers and firefighters aren't worth anything because they can't get there. You know, if we can have good after-school programs, summer programs, we don't need police officers to go out and arrest those people because they have things to do, whether it's a job. We would love to be able to get people coming in. My group, I represent the supervisory professional group. We've been cut 600 positions. That's 600 jobs. 600 jobs that you could have had, your children could have had, your neighbors could have had to help revitalize this community. So thank you for your time, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stokes. Next will be Mrs. Strong talking about police body cameras, followed by Joanne Scott Woods. Good to see you.
Hi, good evening. Good to see you, man. City Manager. I'm in District 4, but I wanted to talk about body cameras. And my reason for bringing that up, if you have any vacancies in the police department that need to be filled, salaries that need to be restored, I kind of think that $11.4 million would probably be better spent trying to address some of those as opposed to, implementing 2 cameras at an average cost of about $5,500 each. And I know you probably have ancillary services that goes with that, in regards to software, maintenance, training, repair and replacement. But it just seems a little bit expensive to do when you have functional manufacturers like GoPro offering the same technology for about $200 each. So as you sit in your plan, I hope you would look at that, rethink it, probably partner with people like GoPro to see what they can develop for the police department to use. But there again, utilize some of those funds to address some of the vacancies that exist. Put an emphasis on hiring quality professionals in those departments so that the emphasis is not trying to capture improprieties in service or behaviors, but more so address that during the interviewing, recruiting, and hiring phase of the job. That would be my input to try and save some money in this tough time and realign resources to better use, better needs. Okay? If I can add to it too, I think you may also have data that would show the high crime areas, the complaints from residents that's probably impacting, and making you want to implement body cameras. If you have to, I would say start in those communities, in those areas, to help officers feel safe in doing their jobs. But there again, I think the more professionals you put on patrolling in those communities, I think you'll realize that the need may reduce. $11.4 million is quite a bit of money. I'm sure you're going to have to replace them. I don't know the useful life of these cameras or tools, but I'm sure it's along the line of the computer system. And that useful life is about 3, maybe 5 years before you have to replace it. So that 11.4 may be a lot more over the life of utilizing that equipment and tool, if you're not careful.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Strong. Something I would add to that is, as it relates to the cost of body cameras, and I'm fully committed to make sure that every single officer of patrol gets a body camera as quickly as possible. City managers proposed a 3-year program to equip all of them. We will be doing an RFP, so certainly if GoPro or any other particular manufacturer of body cameras wants to provide that service, they'll have an opportunity to compete for our business. But the reality is that the hardware is really inexpensive and getting less expensive. The real cost in implementing a body camera program is in data management. We've got that is a ton of data that police officers are going to be capturing on the streets. We have to maintain that data. We have to make sure it's secure, how we maintain it, and obviously how we utilize it so that it can be searchable. Because obviously, as cases move forward, we're going to have to search through, thousands and thousands of hours of video to find that. Obviously, we have to make sure that, again, it's secure, because a lot of people's privacy implications, when a police officer enters a home and they're filming, there's a lot of very private information that is captured on video, so that video has to be appropriately edited before it gets released either to the public through a media request and or through discovery in the litigation process, criminal prosecution process. You can imagine it's really that side of it, managing the data that is collected, is really where the cost, the significant cost is in running a large-scale body camera program. Obviously, Phoenix, being one of the largest departments in the country, will be one of the largest camera programs in the country as well. Next up is Joanne Scott Woods, followed by, James Coburn has some testimony that I'll read his one, wish to testify. Ms. Woods.
My name is Joanne Scott Woods. I am family representative for Romaine Brisbane, who was an unarmed citizen killed by Officer Mark Ryan on December 2nd, 2014. I live in District 3 and now live in the apartment complex where he was killed. I have 5 points to cover. 1, full funding for the deployment of body cameras on police officers. $11 million is necessary, and currently Romaine Brisbane's family is suing for $65 million. It would be fiscally responsible to invest in them fully now. 2, I applaud the inclusion of an employee assistant and wellness program, but equally necessary is a data-driven early intervention system to identify those at risk for violent behavior. Our current system relies only on discretionary reporting, self and co-workers and supervisors. Seattle has one that considers 13 other thresholds, like degrees of use of force, vehicle pursuits, naming in public police actions or police action lawsuits against the city, unexcused failure to appear in mandatory training, and officer-involved shooting. My second concern is lack of dash cams since 2011. A referral for proposal needs to be developed for their inclusion on patrol vehicles. Number 3, of great concern is lack of funding for a civilian review board. By the time I'm presented in the Community Police Trust Initiative, I ask that it be, this funding be included for the approval in the next 2017 to 2018 budget. The last item is for the funding of justice banners for fallen citizens, similar to those of hero banners posted along the city streets for police officers and firemen and women, for families who have filed successful lawsuits or when the police have admitted wrongdoing. This would be an action of doing what is right for the family and right for the community in reconciling officers and citizens that we as a city have been attempting to do since 2010 when the incident concerning Councilman Michael Collins occurred, and confirmed by the statistics from the ASU police department study, the 2009-2014 officer-involved shooting review, and those of other studies indicating Phoenix leading between first to fourth in per capita killings by police of its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Woods, for your testimony. I think you referred to Councilman Mike Johnson, who's here this evening. Good to see you, Councilor Johnson. I do appreciate you mentioning the position that the police chief is recommending, dealing with supporting the mental health of our Phoenix police officers. There's been a lot of work and really self-analysis about how important that is. And I think we have a police chief right now who has been a great advocate in that regard and is really pushing hard that we have this position that really will support officers who have obviously seen some horrific things in their time of service to help with their mental health, inevitable mental health issues in such a challenging position. James Coburn did not wish to speak, but says that night police patrols to get street lights to be required to reduce crime and accidents, so more street lights in the area. To the city of Phoenix start a night patrol of the city to get all of our street lights repaired. That would cut down on our crime and accidents in other cities like El Mirage, for example. Use a police department to report such outages when they are not busy at night while patrolling. Sincerely a concerned citizen, James Caboro, I think is the pronunciation. Thank you for your testimony. City of Phoenix is going to be going out to bid for LED lights, all 90,000 street lights throughout the city. So the city will be replacing every single street light with an LED light, and the luminage, I hope I'm using the correct language there, of that lighting is going to be a critically important decision that we'll make as a community. How bright do we want those lights at night in our city? There are some that want them as bright as possible in a crime reduction and prevention effort. Others are more concerned about dark skies and the ability to see the stars at night, etc., which is a legitimate concern. They don't want the lights as bright. So that will be a decision that we'll make together as a community. But every single street light in the city of Phoenix will be replaced over the next few years with LED lights. It's the right thing to do for our environment. Bill Whitaker, let's see, we should provide testimony on pay and benefits for city employees. Followed by Will Luvida, representing Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. My name is Bill Whitaker. Excuse me. My name is Bill Whitaker. I've had the honor over the last 20 years to be a Phoenix firefighter, and I'm able to, currently I represent and serve the members of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. It's been a great privilege to represent our men and women that protect the communities. 6 years ago, the city wasn't in good shape. I think we all know that. For the first time in my 20-year career, we were facing some things that we had never seen. That was closure of fire stations. Whether on a rotating daily basis or for one station indefinitely, we were taking a look at, for the first time in my 20-year career, to take service away from the citizens. We come together with the city manager's office, with the city's council, with the city council members and the mayor, and realized this wasn't appropriate, and this wasn't something that anyone wanted to do. So my members stepped up with the rest of the members and employees in the city and said this is unacceptable. We entered into a partnership And as the city manager's office said at the time, and many of the council members repeated it, was this is a partnership because it's about our citizens. And what happened in that partnership? Our employees took a pretty significant wage cut. Part of the partnership was we come together, that's the Phoenix way. This is how we do things in Phoenix. We put the customer first, and we have always believed in that. Part of the partnership also was when the economic downturn turned around, we were going to have our wages and benefits restored. That was 6 years ago. So to sit and watch the video and to watch the media that surrounded this over the last few weeks, it really is unconscionable to me that we could be talking about anything other than the number one priority to restoring the wage and benefits to our great employees of the city. So I ask you and I encourage you, keep the partnership that was built, keep the promises that were made 6 years ago, and restore the benefits, restore the pay that was promised. If we want to talk about different things that I totally support, everything in the video, I highly encourage you, and I give you credit for evaluating a property tax. And I encourage you not only to do that, but to pass that and support the great citizens of the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill Whitaker, representing United Phoenix Firefighters. Will Lula, representing Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, followed by former Councilman Mike Johnson, also wanting to speak about city employee and public safety compensation issues. Will Lula, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Will Lugadas. I represent the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Also been a cop for the last 13 years here in Phoenix. Before I start my comments, though, one thing, we have a great city manager. I'd like to thank Ed Zuercher. He's a great city manager. I know he's done his best to bring some budgets forward, and just thank you for your hard work, Ed. I know it's a thankless job, but we do appreciate everything that you do and trying to do for the employees of Phoenix. I want to tell you guys something. I agree with all of you guys here. We want good, professional police officers in the city of Phoenix. We want people who want to move here or who are already here who want to come down here and live in South Phoenix. I myself, I live in a working class neighborhood in South Phoenix. I send my kids to school, the Fowler Elementary School District. I love living down here in South Phoenix. I love the community. But we need good cops. We need professional cops. We have a heck of a lot of them on our department right now. We need more of them. I think everybody agrees with that. But it's hard to get people that want to become cops. But for the last 6 years, the current cops have taken pay cuts. When people call me up from the department and say, hey, I want to come to Phoenix, and they Google our department, the first thing they see is 6 years of pay cuts. Our guys work at Cesar Chavez Day, not getting paid. Our guys work Martin Luther King Day and not getting paid, taking unpaid holidays. It's ridiculous that my men and women are still living under pay cuts 6 years later. We helped the city out in 2010, get rid of the budget crisis. We now have record revenues, record fees, and it's time to restore those concessions back. Not just to my guys, but to all city employees. All city employees equally sacrificed in 2010, again in 2012, and again in 2014. There's money there to restore the concessions fully to all city employees, and that will put us on the right track to be able to recruit great police officers who want to come down here and live in South Phoenix and serve these citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will Lewis, Officer Lewis. Councilman Michael Johnson will be next. Well, also, the former officer as well. That's true. Served many years in homicide. Thank you for your service in that regard as well, Councilman Johnson. Followed by Taniqua Broad. Councilman Johnson.
Mayor, Councilman Orikasi, Vice Mayor, Lady Lewis, City Manager, and congratulations on your water Women's Award that we received from the NAACP on Friday. Congratulate you on that. First of all, let me talk about the property tax. I strongly support the property tax and all of the rumors or things that people may say that the property tax hurts, the lower socioeconomic status. It doesn't. The property tax actually helps. It says the bond program actually helps. If it was not for those type of programs, we wouldn't have the new places that we have right here in East Lake. We wouldn't have a new library that's right there at the South Mountain Community Library. We wouldn't have Harmon Park Library. We wouldn't have Mimosa Park where we now have people who are utilizing the park, going there all the time. And, the community parks that we actually have, Peace Park, Lindo Park, as well as the new park we just did over there in Lindo Park. So, you know, for people to say that we don't benefit from those programs in the southern part of the city is totally untrue, that we have the opportunity to participate in that it also impacts the Carver Museum, impacts what we have in our senior centers, where we have some of our most vulnerable citizens that are living in the southern part of the city with a number of senior centers, number of senior housing in this area that we need to make sure that we're able to do it. So I'm strongly in support of the property tax, and really that rumor that it doesn't benefit anyone in this part of the city is so untrue. It also helps us with, we wouldn't have the baseline road corridor and the improvements. We've heard many people talk about bad streets, but it wouldn't be baseline corridor for those who've been here for a while. You know that if you rode down baseline, you had a good chance of running into a pothole and having to get a new alignment on your vehicle after you finish going down the road. So those taxes really help. So I encourage the city council to continue to look at the property tax, and the food tax, where we ended the food tax early and didn't let it sunset. Taking that as an example, this is resolved not allowing the food tax to sunset and end it early, and it has made these types of impacts to the city. For city employees, I think we have some of the best city employees in the country that are working for us at the city of Phoenix, and I think we should restore them to their rightful benefits that they gave out to the city, and the employees gave up those rights to help the city. And I think that as for the economic development of the city, we should show that not only do we have good, strong city employees, but we have a good, strong city that fully supports its employees. If you don't support your employees, how can you bring economic development to show that you don't support economic development when you're not supporting your own employees who have supported you? Public safety, we need to make sure we continue to get public safety and have officers on the street. I don't think that officer's salary or city employee's salary should be compared to body cameras. If we're going to get body cameras, that's something separate. We should continue to do that. However, officers and all city employees need to be restored. I didn't see anything in the budget, unless I may have missed it, but youth summer employment is so important that we've gotten so far away from youth summer employment that we have these hot summers, we have all these young people that are willing and able to work, but we have no jobs, no opportunities, no things for them to actually participate in. And that it is imperative that we make sure that we put more funding into summer youth employment. Although the federal government used to do a lot of it, we need to make sure as a city that we're providing these opportunities. And there, what we could do if we don't have that is team up with some of the corporations that's coming in, some of the corporate companies to try to come up with ways to hire our young people in the street. I also want to hit up, on our Head Start program, where we have some of the youngest kids having the opportunity to get their early education, to get started early. With Booker T. Washington, one of the older Head Start programs we have, and many youth have come up to work in that. We look at these programs to make sure that we continue to make sure these programs are actually funded. I also want to thank Mr. Thomas for opening up the church here. I want to thank the National Coalition of 100 Black Women for reaching out to the African American community to express the needs and desire that impact the African American community. And as you see here, there's a large representation of people from the African American community. So we want to make sure that the things that are most important to not only South Phoenix, but the African American community and the city of Phoenix as a whole, that these things are addressed. So I think that, the property tax, we heard many citizens come up and talk about, they don't mind paying a little extra in order to, keep these services, to have these services going. That's always been the philosophy, that we want to make sure that we do our share. But to have people put it all on the backs and say, well, the reason that you overtax them, that's wrong. Because we're really the beneficiary of many projects resulting in these type of activities for. But again, I want to thank the mayor for coming out here, city manager, Councilman Orkowski, Vice Mayor Gallegos for taking this opportunity to come out here and hit these concerns. But I strongly encourage us to support the property tax, and I strongly tell us to look at that property tax, because had we not did away with that food tax earlier, we wouldn't be I won't say we wouldn't be in a bad situation, but the situation wouldn't be as bad as it is right now if we did away with that food tax earlier in sunset. But if we do a tax, let's stick with it. Let's stick with it. Let's do a tax. Let's buy services for the citizen, and let's stick with it. Not have some of our colleagues, talk about it's bad. When it's good, we know what's good for the city. Let's continue to do what's good for the city.
Thank you very much, Councilman Johnson. Good to see you.
Tanika Brock wants to speak about arts and culture. And then there's a card here from Andrea Harden that will read her testimony. Tanika, good to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Stanton, Councilman Nowakowski, and other council members in the audience, and City Manager Ed Zerker and other supporting staff. I am a resident of District 4, and I am speaking on behalf of the Arts and Culture Commission this evening. In response to the City Manager's trial budget, we support the trial budget and the recommendations to increase the revenue that creates a surplus rather than a deficit for next year's budget. We support the City Manager's proposal to partially restore previous cuts that were made to the Arts and Culture Grants Program in the amount of $50,000. This would bring the Office of Arts and Culture allocation to up to $730,000. You know the arts and culture promote true prosperity. They are fundamental to our humanity. Here are a few ways they positively affect the Phoenix community. Arts and culture organizations create nearly 10,000 full-time equivalent jobs in Phoenix. 4 million people attend arts presentations through the Office of Arts and Culture grantees last year, and nearly 1 million youth attended events and performances through the Office of Arts and Culture through grantees last year. It also generates nearly $300 million in economic impact. Grants funded to the arts and culture organizations increase yearly helps provide free programs available to our youth, which we've heard tonight seems to be a challenge. And creative aging and other initiatives through the Office of Arts and Culture encourage life learning in the arts and improve quality of life for our seniors. As Phoenix looks forward to the future, arts and culture plays a vital role, and I look forward to working with you to advocate and to strengthen this sector for our economy. I urge City Council and to support the City Manager's proposed budget of option 1 or 2.
Thank you very much, Ms. Broughton, for your leadership on arts and culture issues and your testimony tonight. Andrea Harden did not wish to speak, but wished to say that she supports completion of necessary renovations at the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center to serve as a beacon in the African American community of programs and ongoing cultural experiences. Thank you, Ms. Harden. Ms. D. Smith did not wish to provide testimony, but she wanted to support widening of the streets and improving the conditions. What is the protocol for implementing street improvements? This is desperately needed in order to relieve heavy traffic backup. Is this in the budget? I'll just address that in a bit by saying that through Proposition 104, which the citizens of Phoenix overwhelmingly support, there will now be more than a doubling of the budget for street improvements, which did during the worst of the recession get cut from the city budget. So we're playing a little catch up in that regard, but we'll be making significant street improvements throughout the city, particularly in older streets in the older parts of the city. They're going to get first in line, if you will, for the major street improvements. That's going to start this summer. It's pretty exciting. Next is Katya Brown. Katya, did you wish to provide testimony? You want to provide testimony regarding decreasing funds to nonprofits that support homeless populations. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak. My name is Christia Brown. I actually live in District 7, but I work, live in District 6. I work in District 7 with Central Arizona Shelter Services, otherwise known as CAS. And we truly appreciate the funding and support we've received from the City of Phoenix over the past several years. But I would not be doing my due diligence as a community supporter and worker for CAS if I didn't bring a face to the issue of homelessness. So specifically, I have an older woman in my neighborhood named Karen, who I've known for several months. She has severe mental illness. And the only way I know that she's safe is every few days I kind of round the corner the long way to my condo to make sure I see her near the trash bins. But a few weeks ago, I was able to access communication with her, 7% reduction that is in one of the options for the budget. Specifically, that would be about $52,000 reduced from the CAS budget. I don't know if you know this, but over the last 10 years, CAS has been reduced about $232,000 in the budget. And while that may seem like a nominal amount to the billions that you have to balance for CAS, being a nonprofit organization in the town, it really is a significant amount. It actually equates to about 325 people that will not receive shelter services from CAS if the 7% budget decrease is passed. And for me, as a community citizen, that's 325 people that are on the street. More than what I'm sure everyone in this room has seen someone on the street corner or at the freeway intersection or in your neighborhood who is experiencing homelessness. It's a concern for our community. CAS is just one of the many nonprofits that supports the issue of homelessness. But again, my concern as a citizen is, where do these people go? How many Karens do we need to see out on the street corner and in the street struggling the way that they're struggling before we have some sort of answer? Obviously, it's a regional effort. The city of Phoenix being the largest city is a big part of that. I also want to mention that organizations like CAS, if being reduced, it affects more than just the nonprofit. It affects the emergency services that are used. Wait times in hospitals will increase. The police department, we have a great relationship with in our area, they would feel the effect. The fire department would feel the effect. So it really does spread across. Again, I know 7% seems small, but as someone who's part of my job is to receive the emails that I get every single day from individuals from not just Arizona, not just Phoenix, but all over the country that are looking to come here, but have no resources here and are already looking for shelter. My concern is, what do we do with all of those people? So I appreciate your time and just ask that you consider those.
Thank you very much, Katie, for your testimony and your great work working at CAS, and maybe after the meeting, you get share any dirt you got on the correct trip in. All right. Next speaker will be Lee Anderson. And Lee want to talk about some building safety and fire code issues. And then followed by former Representative Clovis Campbell, who's here. Good to see you, Clovis. Thanks for coming. Alan, good to see you. All right. I see you've got a card in the bus.
Yeah.
So either way. All right, good. Sure.
They're all about the same thing.
Good to see you.
First of all, I want to welcome all of you all to Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. I'm a member of Pilgrim Rest, and I'm also a part owner of Immaculate Products LLC. We are a company that is based in District 8. We are a minority-owned company, veteran preference company, and we provide photoluminescent materials that are now required to be in stairwells of high-rise buildings, 6 stories and tall. And we've been working with the city for the last 6 months or so in getting the word out to building owners that they now have to have that material in their buildings. The reason is it's for fire safety. You all remember 9/11, a lot of people were coming down the stairwells, couldn't get out because the lights were out. So they were trampled on, and there was a lot of people that could have been saved if they could have seen their way out. We provide that material. We are certified by the city as a disadvantaged business enterprise, and we also are a veteran preference company. So what I'd like to do is just get in the budget process, let the city know that we are available to provide that service. There are over 150 buildings that the fire marshal, we requested, and with the help, and let me just say that city councilwoman and Vice Mayor Gallego and her staff, Courtney in particular, have been extremely helpful in getting our business off the ground. But I just wanted to say that there are 150 buildings in the city that need this material in their buildings. They've been sent a letter by the city fire marshal. There's also been a letter prepared by the state fire marshal informing these building owners that these buildings now need to come into compliance. We'd like to work with the city in getting into your budget process and be able to provide jobs for people on the south side, a lot of our workers. We're working very closely with TCDC. That's where we do our training. We do our hands-on training in their stairwells. We also use their school out on 32nd and Weir, 32nd Street and Weir, that we do our training. We also are providing employment. We've been featured in the Arizona Informant. In fact, I was looking at it, it's the same article where Budget Director Barton was featured. We were featured in that same issue. We want to thank Clovis for getting us in the paper. So we just wanted to introduce ourselves to the community. My partner was here. He had to leave, but he is an engineer. He's worked on many projects, such as the SkyTrain over at Sky Harbor, and I'm a lawyer by profession and construction manager. So we are available to work with the city and provide this service to the buildings and provide fire safety for the citizens.
Thank you very much, Alan Ward. We had a chance to privately meet. Seems like a pretty cool little business, so thanks for being in a life-saving business. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Clovis Campbell, former state senator Clovis Campbell is next. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor. How are you doing tonight? Councilman Milkowski, Mr. Zerker, good to see you all here. I want to thank again, Michael Johnson did a good job of thanking just about everybody in here. So I'm trying to continue to ride on this coattail as well. Definitely want to thank 100 Black Women, Bishop Thomas for putting this on. Just have a couple of quick comments because everybody's been touching on pretty much everything that we talked about this evening in the presentation tonight. But as Phoenix being one of the largest, sixth largest city in the country, and we continue to grow every year, but yet we continue to find ourselves in this position where we're cutting money. We have more people come to town and we bring more businesses to town than ever before. I want to, if we get a chance next time on the budget to look at just what kind of concessions we're giving to these businesses to move into Phoenix, particularly because we're losing money while these companies continue to make money, and we give so many concessions that we're losing our services to one, our young people and our older people first. And if we can look at where we're giving our concessions away, I appreciate having the Super Bowl here, but I don't think giving the $25 million bonus to them to bring them into town is worth having the Super Bowl here. I know nobody here went to the game. I can guarantee you that probably you and Milkowski did, but that's about it. But, those types of things is great to say that we host them, but when it costs us services to our community and the people that really work hard, these folks here have no problem paying additional money for taxes for services and programs. When we give our tax credits to big businesses that come in and give nothing back, they should be doing programs for our after-school programs. They should be putting money into our student and youth summer program. They should be doing a lot of different things except taking a good deal and coming to Arizona and then playing on our golf courses all the time. I appreciate everything you all are doing. Mr. Zerker, at the time, he has to take on a lot for his job because I saw him when he used to work out with me in the gym, and he still looks pretty good for an old dude. But we really want you to look at what we're giving up and what our citizens are paying for as we move on in the future. Because Arizona is the greatest place in the world to live. I'm a native Phoenician. I love it here, and I look forward to being here for another 50 years. And just want to say thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you very much, Representative Campbell, very much. Not wishing to speak, the one who brought testimony is Lucy Howard. She says she supports body cameras and she supports giving the city employees full restoration of concessions. Next, the Gentles, Carl and Carla Gentles, wanted to talk about a variety of issues, some tax issues, as well as full funding. Oh, not wishing to speak, I'm sorry, I apologize. The Gentles, Carl Gentles doesn't want to speak. What's going on here tonight? Something in the water here? Are you sure? All right, up to you. He's coming. He's coming.
I don't have to speak to be heard.
All right, I'll try to represent your card well then. The Gentles signed a single card as a couple. We support an excise tax on discretionary tax items like cigarettes, gas, restaurants, liquor, not on basic city service bills like the water bill. That is one of the proposals, was a discretionary tax on a water bill. It's not what's being recommended by the city manager, but it's one of the options. He says also support full funding for police and fire and the addition of body cameras. Thank you, Gentles, for your testimony and all you do for our community. And then Carla Gentles filled out a separate card, in addition to the couple's card, syndicating that she requests for funding for Coronado Historic District paving Granada Road at 7th Street. All right, that's in District 8. All right, I'll make sure you get the 4. That's in District 4. All right. We'll make sure that the Councilwoman Pastor gets that card, and also how important Coronado Historic District is. All of our historic districts are. We appreciate that very, very much. Next will be John Dean. not wishing to speak, but indicating he wants a full restoration for police and fire, full restoration of the concessions from past budgets. I have one more card. Did anyone else wish to provide testimony? Charlene, you want to provide testimony? Come on, bring your card. I'll save the other card then to be the final speaker. Is anyone else here wishing to provide testimony before city manager and myself and the two council members who are here? Okay, so we have two more cards, and then we'll call it a wrap on tonight's budget hearing. Charlene Tarver, who I mentioned earlier as one of the organizers and leaders of 100 Black Women of Arizona, helped put on today's event. Thank you for doing so. And you wish to provide testimony as well? Good to see you.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor and Council. First of all, I would like to say thank you so much to the community for coming out. All too often, decisions are made regarding the budget, and we're not present. So if you're not present, then your voice is not heard, which means you don't matter. So I appreciate the community coming out tonight and letting the mayor and the city manager and city council know that we do matter and we do have a voice. And you know, there were a couple of questions that Councilman Norokowski asked this evening. He asked, what are we willing to give up in order to balance the budget? First of all, we're not willing to balance the budget on the backs of our youth or on the backs of our seniors. Our young people, there are a number of people that have testified here this evening that have spoken about the need for city employment programs for youth and who have spoken about not cutting services to seniors. So that's not an option. What we are willing to give up, and I think you've heard this has been a resounding theme, is that people are willing to pay the additional property tax if that's required in order to keep those services. But what I'd like to say is that this is a leadership issue. It's so much bigger than just balancing the budget for 2016-17. It's about putting a revenue generation strategy in place that will put Phoenix where it needs to be, and we're not still struggling trying to come back from the recession. So that ultimately is what this is about. City Council is going to vote on this, and we're going to need the City Council to exercise some leadership here. We cannot forego the future of our young people. If you look at this budget, you look at the additions, the very first thing you see are additions for body cameras and hiring staff for the prosecutor's office and hiring additional police officers. First of all, I'm a proponent of body cameras. I'm a proponent because what it does is it does foster and create trust and transparency in the police department. The police cannot be immune from speculation or from clarity as to how they function and how they serve and protect the community. But in that same vein, what you've proposed, it almost looks as if though it's a prison pipeline. So we're creating and investing resources in police and hiring more people to serve the community in less services and resources for our young people. We're eliminating our parks and resources for young people and pouring more of those dollars into the police department. Now, what I would say about the body cameras is this. We have to stop coming up with Band-Aid approaches, okay? The real issue with police across this nation is racial profiling and police brutality. And putting cameras on officers is not going to eradicate that because it gives the officer discretion to turn it off and on as they see fit. So the bigger issue is training on deceleration of force, training on mental health issues, better educating our officers on cultural inclusion and diversity and sensitivity training. That must be at the forefront of any type of program that's going to foster better relationships and connections between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. The other thing we need to talk about is engaging the community. If you look at this meeting tonight, this meeting was convened because there are a number of residents that care about what's happening at the city. And we want to ask you that before you make any final decisions regarding this budget, let's assume that we don't get the property tax increase, that the city council doesn't vote on that. Before you make any cuts, please reach out, being the community leaders, and have a discussion about where those cuts are going to take place and what you're proposing. Please don't do that in a vacuum, because all too often we know the communities that are cut first are communities of color and poor people. And so we want the community to have a voice in those cuts. Do not camouflage it in the budget proposal that you've given us and then meet behind closed doors and carve out disproportionately cuts that impact District 8 and other communities of color. And again, we strongly would encourage you to look at revenue generating ideas. There are a number that have been mentioned by Carol Coles Henry, by Carolyn Bristow, by Gail Knight, Onesimus Stryken. There are a number of folks here that are very talented that I think would really serve the city well if the city were to be amenable to their input and their ideas. So again, it's wonderful that we're doing what we're doing tonight, but ultimately we're going to need some leadership from our city council to make a very tough decision about the property taxes. And we're looking forward to you doing that. And also I want to give a special acknowledgement to Jeff Barton. Jeff, would you please stand again? Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the city. Thank you for representing us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tarver, for your leadership and helping to put this together. Very much appreciate it. And when we start out this budget year in a better fiscal position, because Jeff Barton did really hard with all the departments to find additional savings. Thank goodness, because this is a tough budget. It's a big decision, as we mentioned, but it makes it a little bit easier because of the budget savings that Jeff was able to find because of leadership. All right, we have one final speaker here tonight, and we're going to close with Bishop Alexis Thomas.
Here on the end, and just give thanks to you, Mayor, and to our council people, and to Ed. Ed is my friend. Ed is all of our friend, and so to you, Mayor, you all doing a wonderful job of reaching out. I appreciate tonight. I've not been a part of this kind of process many times, maybe once in my years here, and so I've just been delighted that we could bring it here, and that y'all were willing to come down and have this time with us. I'm thankful for all of our members, the wonderful black women. Thank you all. Carol, and where's Kelly? Is Kelly here? Okay, well, you know Kelly, who's members of our church who worked to try to put it together tonight, and I'm very grateful. I wanted to say just a couple things. First of all, I'm a product of the Parks and Recreation System. Carol, in fact, Carol was over one of the centers here over by South Phoenix, South Southland High School. I used to go over when she was the director of one of the centers, and you know, act up over there. Back in the day, now I'm her pastor all these years later. It's just incredible. But I'm a product of that, and so I really want to encourage us to keep our parks and recreational centers open. They're valuable pieces of our community. We need them to be open because even though they were open, I got in some trouble, but don't tell them why I might have got in trouble if they were not open. And so it's just very, very critical, and so I want to just put some emphasis on that. Also, I wanted to say to us as well, you know, let us keep these kinds of dialogues happening. As Shirley pointed out, it would be great to have you all come back at some point, I don't know when, and say, you know, here's where we are, and here's where we're going with it. For us to have some additional comments about it. I don't know what that process is, but that would be great for us to have some additional comments about it. So again, I'm grateful to everybody for coming tonight. Thank you so very much for your input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop, for hosting us, and all your church members did great tonight. They came prepared, they did their homework, and it's exactly the kind of citizen leaders that we need. I want to thank City Manager, Councilman Kowski, Councilman Gallego, who was able to stay for the entire meeting.
This is one of 15 budget hearings like this we're going to be doing around the city. Sounds like there might be some adding some based upon the testimony here tonight as well, but this testimony does matter. It matters a lot, and this budget will not stay the same as was earlier proposed because of the testimony that we heard here tonight and throughout the other budget hearings. So this process is very, very important. Again, thank you to 100 Black Women of Arizona. Apparently they were kind enough to think of our tummies because there are some snacks in the back so we can stay and socialize and talk a little bit more about the budget as well. Councilman Kowski, any final comment?
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to thank the 100 Black Women of Arizona for giving us this opportunity to listen and to learn. Also, Bishop, thank you for opening up your home and allowing us to be here today. And let me tell you that today what I learned is you all had the opportunity to tell us the Phoenix story. And that's what we need to continue talking about. We need to let people know the Phoenix story. I heard the Phoenix story about firefighters and police officers that put on that uniform every day. And their loved ones don't know if they're going to come back home that day. I heard the Phoenix story about how our parks and rec, our senior centers, our arts programs, and all that have changed the lives. And our after-school programs, how it's a safe haven for our children. I heard the story of how important it is to keep our neighborhoods clean, and how can we think outside the box and maybe use some of the prisoners to come in and help out with that. I heard the story of how hard it is and how important it is to have this property tax, to make sure that we keep the programs that we have alive, but at the same time that we use that tax for the purposes that was set out here in this meeting. And the most important is that we restore that 4.2% back to our employees. 6 years ago, when we needed help, they were willing to give up. And that we turned around and said as a city, when times start good, and when there's a surplus, that we would give back. Not just to police, not just to fire, but all of our employees. And we need to figure that out somehow, some way. And that I heard very loud and clear that we don't want to come back next year begging for money or saying there's going to be another tax, that we need to fix it as leaders. And that is our responsibility. That we need to figure this out. We need to sit together and figure out the future of our city, and that we can't come back every year asking for some type of a tax or some type of help. And that Michael Johnson, or my colleague here, talked about all the benefits from the taxes and the bond programs that we have, from our parks, our libraries, and he mentioned quite a few of them in this area. And it's true. It helps out our minority communities. It helps out the community that I represent in South Phoenix and the west side of Phoenix. If it wasn't for the bond programs, if it wasn't for the taxes, our children wouldn't have the opportunities to learn how to swim. They wouldn't have the opportunity to go to an after-school program. I'm a product of Head Start. I never believed that I would be here as your representative, as a city council member, from a Head Start program to here. I'm a product of your Parks and Rec, keeping me off the streets, keeping me involved. Those programs are important. Those programs create leaders, not just council members, but also bishops. And that's why it's so important. So I just want to thank you all, and God bless you all for caring enough to come out and tell the Phoenix story. And I really want to thank our former council members, Mr. Tripkin, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Good, because they're still involved. They love this, our city, and they're involved. They come to these meetings, one meeting after another meeting, advocating for their district. Even though they're not elected officials, they're still out there representing you all. So thank you all for being here. God bless you, and we'll see you at the next budget hearing.
Thank you very much, Councilman. That concludes our budget hearing tonight. Thank you all for being here, and we will be back in regular contact with you as the budget process continues. Thanks for watching.
You have been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback through social media by using #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov/PHXTV or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.